Bottom line viewers, it's Mitch back here with another week of NFL picks. This week, week number 16 of the 2019 NFL season. It's just 2 weeks away from the NFL playoffs for a lot of you. You're in your fantasy football championship this week. It's an exciting time to be a football fan. It's an exciting time to be on this channel, be a subscriber of this channel, and to be me, because I've been making a lot of videos. I hope you've been checking those out as the course of the week has gone by, hoping to make even more as we go forward. And Saturday, we have 3 football games. Kind of like Thanksgiving 2.0. We have a huge game on Monday Night Football. We have a big game on Sunday Night Football. So it's looking like another excellent week of NFL action, week 16 of the 2019 season. Before I get into my week 16 picks, make sure that you do Gronk Spike, the like button, subscribe to the Bottom Line View for more NFL picks and content in general here on the Bottom Line View. And comment below your opinion, whether you're here live with me right now or you're watching this after the fact. I want to hear from you guys. Who are you picking this week? What are your best bets? What type of money you laying on these games, if you are at all? Or are you in your fantasy championship? Let me know in the comment section, live or below, if you're watching this after the fact. So, week number 15. It was a pretty good week for old Mitch. I had a pretty good week. I had my best week of the season betting. So it was a while. I've been up and down, more so down this year in my best bets than up. But in gambling, sometimes all it takes is one big week. And I had a really, really good week personally. Looking at my record now, I am 143, 79, and 1 for the season. Straight up versus the spread, I am 125 and 98. I believe I was 11 and 5 straight up and 10, 5, and 1 versus the spread. On my record here, when I do tie, so to speak, I just count it as a loss because I'm not going to count it as a separate category because I don't count it for straight up. I have the one tie there because the Lions and the Cardinals tied in the first week of the season, but I'll probably just erase that when we go next week. I just feel like it's too much of a hassle, so I'm just going to count it as a loss. Some places, they count it as a win for you. Some places count it as a loss if you're gambling. It depends where you're gambling, where you're putting your money, but there you go. That's my record right now. I feel very confident about my picks versus the spread. I feel more confident as the weeks continue to go on. I feel like I have a really, really good kind of attachment to what these teams are all about, and I feel like I have these matchups down really, and I'm really excited for the playoffs because that's when we're going to see the biggest of all matchups. So, let's go into, first, guys, because you really need to do this. If you're not already, follow me on Twitter, at Mitch Milani. That's where I give my opinions. I'm on there constantly every day. If anybody follows me there already, I always respond to your questions. I always get back to you. I'll always be commenting my opinion on the latest in the NFL. So if I'm not making a video about a subject, most likely I've been commenting about it on Twitter. So if you want to follow me on Twitter, at Mitch Milani. The same is for Instagram, although I don't use Instagram as heavily. I do post more personal pictures of myself and kind of you get to know my everyday life if you want to follow me there on Instagram. So at Mitch Milani there on Twitter. All right. We start off, that's Monday night. Got it the opposite way. Let's start off on Saturday, not Monday, with the Houston Texans and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So I kind of feel like this game would have been excellent if Mike Evans and Godwin were playing, but that's not going to be the case. They're both out, so it kind of ruins the excitement of this game because when you look at this game on paper, this is two of the most electrifying offenses in the league. These are two of the more exciting quarterbacks in the league. Deshaun Watson for his ability to both scramble, buy time, and make plays through the air. And then Jameis Winston for his absolute craziness. And I've said it once, I'll say it again. Jameis Winston is my favorite player in the NFL. I'm going to order a Jameis Winston jersey because that guy is not only an epic fantasy quarterback, and I'm sure a lot of you guys that have Jameis Winston might be in the finals right now, but also he is just the most exciting quarterback in football. I don't care if it leads to wins or losses. He is so exciting. I don't care. Dilly, come at me, because I know that he doesn't like Jameis Winston. So the Texans, they're on the inside track in the AFC South. Winston, he is the first quarterback in NFL history for the Bucs, for anybody of that matter, to win 2 back-to-back games with 450 yards passing. Guys, that's insane. That's absolutely incredible. Tampa Bay, they've actually been quietly pretty good. It's not just Jameis Winston who's been getting it done for the Tampa Bay Bucs. It's been the receivers. It's been the offense. And they have quietly won 5 of the last 6 games that they've played. So this is not going to be an easy game. Evans or no Evans, Godwin or no Godwin. The only loss that the Bucs have in their last 6 games was versus the Saints, and the Saints are a good team, and I would say they're better than the Texans, so there is that. Bodo with the $10. What's up, Bodo? He says, I'm at 145 on Straight Up. Congrats on making the Bottom Line View final, Mitch and Kevin Durkant. Thank you, Bodo, for the $10. I appreciate it. Let's get back to the picks. Bodo is BLV Hall of Fame subscriber right there. All right, so as I was saying, Tampa Bay has been quietly very good. And Deshaun Watson, I think he had a good game versus the Titans. That one ball he put on Kenny Stills in the back of the end zone, very nice, very nice. Deshaun Watson and the Texans, I think these receivers should eat versus the Bucs. I've said consistently week after week after week. Not only at the Bucs, they're 7-7 right now. A lot of people would underestimate that. But if they had a good secondary, which I think is their weakness of their team, I think it might be the worst in the league. If they had a good secondary, they would be a playoff team to me, personally. They do not have that, though. The Tampa Bay Bucs, they allow the 3rd most passing yards per game. They allow 31.8 points per game. Deshaun Watson should eat. The Texans wide receivers should eat. And this Tampa Bay secondary is not very good. So DeAndre Hopkins, if you have him in fantasy, he'll beast for you. Will Fuller, definitely start him. Deshaun Watson, he should have a big day. This will be the difference, in my opinion, in this game. Not just because of these guys, but like I led with, without having Evans and without having Godwin, I do not think Jameis Winston can keep up on the scoreboard to what Deshaun Watson and this offense will be doing. When I've watched the Texans offense, I've really liked what I've seen when they come out in the pistol set. I just think it's a little bit more dynamic than what they do out of shotgun or under center. I think they need to go to that a little bit more. I would also say that it's a more effective way for them to run the football than a traditional running set. That's when I kind of notice, I don't know the stats or anything like that, but just from watching them with consistency, it does seem like the Texans are more effective when they constantly do go to the pistol, and usually they utilize Carlos Hyde as the back. They have usually 2 receivers, and they kind of like the split back set where they have the fullback, the tight end, and the running back. It's like a full house set. And they have the running back behind the quarterback and the 2 backs. You'll see it a lot with the Ravens. But the Texans also do that very efficiently. They were efficient with that versus the Titans. I just think they need to go more to that and less on the offensive line to have to protect in the shotgun. I think it actually helps the offensive line in that regard. Now, looking at who will have to step up for the Tampa Bay Bucs, Winston, he's obviously dealing with a thumb and a knee injury, so it hasn't been easy. Their two tackles, Dotson and Smith, did not practice Tuesday, but I think Dotson is expected to play. Now, Perryman will have to step up. If you haven't already, pick him up in fantasy. It might be a good start for you this week. Should be more tight ends involved, whether that's Howard or Brait. Those two guys should be heavily involved in their game plan as they're lacking the wide receivers. And then probably also Miller as well will be involved in this game plan. But when I look, and I gave him credit in my top 10 video, Romeo Crennel has done a good job with very limited talent for the Texans this year on defense, whether it's losing J.J. Watt to injury or it's losing Jadeveon Clowney to a trade. Really, Romeo Crennel's been able to mix and match the talent. Not a very good secondary, not an excellent pass rush with a dynamic pass rusher. Now, one injury that could hurt them in this game is McKinney, who's been big for this defense. He's possibly going to be out with a concussion. We'll have to see if he'll play on Saturday. Those are all the points I have about this game. I feel like the Texans will win. I do feel like they will cover the 3. There are some slight things to be worried about because Jameis, Arians, they will attack downfield, which is what the Texans' really biggest weakness is defending downfield passing. But because the Tampa Bay Bucs do not have the wide receivers to really attack it the same way that they used to or they could have with Evans and Godwin, I just believe Fuller, Hopkins, Stills, this passing attack with Deshaun Watson will be too dynamic for Tampa Bay to handle and for that secondary to handle. So I have the Texans winning and covering, and I will let you know that I have already placed a pretty significant bet on the Texans. So there you go. Next, we have the Buffalo Bills at the New England Patriots. The Buffalo Bills, this is the game of the week to me. I don't think it's the game of the week in terms of the meaning of the game, because basically the meaning of the game, the Bills and the Patriots, they've secured their spots in the playoffs. This one, to me, is bigger for New England because if they lose, then potentially Kansas City can leapfrog them for a bye week. So it's big for New England in that regard that they need to sustain a bye week because I think that's big, not only for the Patriots, but for NFL playoff teams in general to have that bye week. It's a big deal to have that rest, to have that advantage in scouting versus your opponent, whatever it may be. I feel like New England, they could very much use that, especially with guys like Edelman who are banged up. But for Buffalo, they need to win the game versus New England, and then they need New England to lose to Miami to win this division. So that's unlikely, but Buffalo is fighting for the 5th seed rather than the 6th seed because I don't think you want to go to Arrowhead. It's just I don't know, maybe they do. I don't know. I really don't know if Buffalo matches up better with the Texans or with the Chiefs. It's kind of an interesting thing, and I guess they will have to determine that, but I just feel like Buffalo is going to continue to fight for the division as long as they can, and they'll see in Week 17 what the process will be in Week 17. But as for Week 16, they're going to put their heart and soul into winning this game. But like I said, I don't think it has a huge impact on the AFC playoffs other than the fact that if New England loses, they could lose the bye. But that would still mean that Kansas City would have to lose or have to win both of the games. They play a tough game this week. They play a tough game next week. So you never know that they could potentially lose one of those games as well. So earlier this season, the Buffalo Bills did lose at home to New England 16-10. That was a slugfest type of game. I believe these are the two best defenses in football right now, in my opinion. I know a lot of people will still say the 49ers. I feel like the 49ers have regressed as the season has gone on. I think we saw a lot of it was the destruction of the pass rush, and right now that pass rush isn't quite as healthy as it was. The defensive line isn't quite at 100%, and it's kind of fallen off a little bit. I also believe that Pittsburgh is in the conversation for one of the better defenses. But to me, week in, week out, these are the two defenses in New England and Buffalo that I think make the biggest difference and I think are the most consistent. So I think it's a game between the two best defenses in the league. And I would also argue it's a game between the two best defensive minds in the league. If there is any weakness to either of these defenses, I feel like it's defending the run. Now, the Patriots, they rank 7th in DVOA versus the run, so that's not really a huge weakness, but when you compare it to their pass defense, it would be the weakness to their defense. And for Buffalo, they are also top 3 versus the pass, and in DVOA versus the run, they are surprisingly only 19th, although I will say they've been better versus the run as of late. I don't know if that's been because of the opponents they've played or if they've just been better. Now, versus the Baltimore Ravens, they were very, very good in regards to what it takes to stop the Ravens and their run game. So I'll give them the benefit of the doubt that they are better in that category right now than they were earlier in the season. Now, looking at the rushing output of the first game, Sony Michel had 17 carries for 63 yards. In the first game, Frank Gore actually found a lot of success, 17 carries for 109 yards in that game. I don't know how much of that had to do with the Patriots playing light fronts, which, what I remember, the Patriots did play a lot of light fronts, and Frank Gore kind of ate them up because of it, and they didn't really adjust until later in the game for the Patriots. They didn't adjust. But either way, that's some success that you could now give to Singletary, who's a better back than Gore, and he's going to be leading the pack for Buffalo in this game. And he's been one of the better backs, I would say, over the past 5 to 6 weeks. I'm not saying he's like a game changer, but he's been pretty efficient with his carries. Now, Josh Allen was hurt in the part of the fourth quarter of the first game, but I would argue that Barkley was better than him in that game regardless. I know a lot of people don't want to hear that, and I'm an Allen fan myself, but Allen was not good in that game, and I would argue he was the reason they lost to the Patriots. I mean, he made a lot of bad mistakes. He threw 3 interceptions. All of them were pretty bad decisions, and he was sacked like 4 times. The quarterbacks in general threw 4 picks, so the Patriots capitalized off 4 picks, and the Bills quarterbacks were sacked 5 times. So that was the difference in the game. They also had a punt block. So the Patriots were able to go up 13-0 in the first quarter, and they didn't cruise from there, but they held on from there with their strong play from their defense, and that's why they were able to win. But Buffalo did outgame them in that game. Buffalo was basically better in every category. It was just New England's defense taking the football away and special teams, which has been the common theme of the Patriots season. So they're going to have to do that again. One area that I find interesting is that although the Patriots, some would say, have been exposed by mobile quarterbacks, the one mobile quarterback they are very good against is Josh Allen going back to last year. Like I said, they sacked him 5 times, they kept him in the pocket, and they seem to have a handle on what he does with his legs. Tom Brady also did throw an end zone interception in that game, so the Bills weren't the only ones to turn the football over. Brady also threw 6 points or 7 points away in that game. I think it was late in the first half, but I could be mistaken there. I think both teams need to do better on third down. My biggest question for New England is how banged up is Julian Edelman, because last week he didn't look healthy. And he basically was a non-factor. He was more of a decoy to draw coverage from the Bengals more than anything. And my second question is, how will the Bills decide to cover him? If he's on the outside, I assume Tre'Davious White may take him. But if he's in the slot where he mostly is, I would say that Edelman will probably get a double team, because I don't think Tre'Davious White goes in the slot very often. So I do believe that Edelman will draw a double team when he's in the slot, but on the outside, I do believe Tre'Davious White will follow him and play him one-on-one. Now, the Patriots, they could be without slot corner Jonathan Jones, who I've said throughout the season, very, very good player. Jason McCourty, will he be back in the lineup, though, because he's been missing the last 2 weeks? I would expect whoever plays out of those two, I assume one of them will play, will likely be covering Cole Beasley, which will be a big matchup for the Bills' offense. And I would say for Patriots fans, I don't think that for this game, losing Jonathan Jones is a big deal, because Jason McCourty has shown that he can play in the slot and on the outside. So I don't really think that's a huge loss for the Bills game, but it could potentially be a huge loss if he's out long term. So keep that in mind. Then we have the Bills being pretty healthy on the injury report. Their starting right tackle might be out, though, so keep that. If you're watching the Patriots pass rush and notice the injury report, he might be out of the game. So Patriots might be able to attack that with some blitz or some stunts or just getting their best pass rusher on that matchup. I think overall this game comes down to the offense that can make more plays and the special teams that can flip the field position better. How's the punting? How's the coverage? How's the returning? The special teams I think is going to be big. And then is there a turnover on special teams? And then second, like I said, the running game will be important. I think what team can establish the offensive line and get a little bit more push will be a big deal. But at the end of the day, also a big matchup to look for is John Brown versus Stephon Gilmore. On the opposite side, I would say Jerry Hughes, Trent Murphy, and Shaq Lawson versus Cannon and Wynn will also be a big matchup. If Brady does get some sort of time, that will help the Patriots offense significantly because in that first matchup, wasn't a lot of time. And I do believe the Bills sent quite a few blitzes in that game, which the Patriots have had trouble blocking and also getting open on man-to-man coverage consistently versus like zero blitzes and versus heavy overloads because Brady can't get the ball out quick enough, their offensive line can't hold up, and their receivers can't get enough separation outside of Edelman. So that will be a big matchup there in terms of scheme. But at the end of the day, I think if the Patriots win the interior battle on the offensive line, I think they will win the game because that is where the Bills are the weakest. The Bills are the weakest not on the edge, but in the interior. That is because their run defense isn't as good as their pass rush or their pass defense. And a big reason is because they're not as strong on the interior. And we've also seen that Brady feels the most pressure when he's pressured up the middle like any other pocket quarterback. So if Brady is pressured up the middle, then the Bills, I think, can win this game. But if Brady is kept clean from Joe Thuney across to Shaq Mason, I feel like the Patriots will have enough success to move the ball. I think both offenses will struggle a lot. I think this will be a defensive game, a low-scoring game. I expect both teams to have under 20 points. I will go the Patriots 17, the Bills 13, and a slugfest once again. I just don't think that the Bills can come into New England and win. I don't think I would be shocked if the Bills won, but I would be a little surprised because I don't think the Bills have enough offensive superstars to get it done. I think if the Bills had one more excellent receiver or a dynamic tight end, that they could possibly pull off the win. But because they really don't, I think New England's defense is just too good and playing at too high of a clip for them to lose. So I'm going to go Patriots 17-13 in this game. That to me is the game of the week. Let me know on those. After the Saturday games, I'll get to the comments. All right. The final Saturday game is the Rams at the 49ers. 49ers are minus 6.5, which I found rather interesting as the week opened up because San Francisco did lose to Atlanta. So I felt like this would be a little lower. Considering this is a rivalry game, it is an NFC West game. I have the San Francisco 49ers winning, and a large reason for that is when I looked back at the first meeting of these two teams, San Francisco dominated the game defensively with a strong pass rush, and they really kept Jared Goff on his toes, forced a lot of mistakes, I should say, and then they didn't have a lot of their good players. I mean, they didn't have Emmanuel Sanders. They didn't have their two tackles on offense. They didn't have Kyle Juszczyk. And Jimmy Garoppolo wasn't the Jimmy Garoppolo we see today. So for that, and for being at home, I'm picking the 49ers to win and to cover. The 49ers, I just think the way that the Cowboys pushed around the Rams up front on both sides of the ball, I think San Francisco will attempt to do the same. San Francisco lost last week. I don't think they'll lose 2 in a row. I think they will bounce back. Atlanta has an extremely fast defense, which I said would match up with San Francisco's offense quite well, and it did. And I just feel like the Rams are a little bit demoralized after that big loss. I don't think that they will be able to go into San Francisco, regroup, and win. I could be proven wrong, but I just don't think the Rams are good enough up front on both sides of the ball or deep enough up front on the defensive line to win this game. I think the 49ers win this comfortably. I'm going to say 30 to 17 to 20 points for the Rams. I think the San Francisco 49ers find a way to cover this game. All right, let's get to the comments. If you guys haven't already, make sure that you do Gronk spike the like button. Let's get to the comments. Let's put this up real quick. There you go. Nemskit says, let's go. Turtle says, Gronk spike the like button. Robot Guy says, yo, 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 what's up? He says, finals are over. Well, Robot Guy, congratulations. I hope you did well. Ultra says, what's up? Kevin Durkant says, Mitchell Milani in capital letters. The Joker says, let's go, Buffalo. Kevin Durkant says, I'm calling you out. Play me in Madden, Mitch. He says, Mitch, I play you in Fantasy Championship. I just checked today. You're losing Chris Godwin. I know. I don't know what to do, bro. I think you're going to win. I hope not, but I think you might. Graham says, yo, what's up, Graham? Ultra says, if you want to hear how Tom Brady is literally saving humanity, follow at Mitch Milani. That's a good plug. Thank you, Ultra. Deshaun says, 49ers over the Rams, 27-20. Sammy has the Texans, 27-24. Ultra has the Texans, 38-20. Tristan has the Texans, 42-21. Robot Guy has the Texans Texans, but the Bucs have the weirdest player to ever exist. Yes, I like it. Vash says, hey, Mitch. Hashtag BLV with a cool face. What's going on, Vash? Vash sounds like a wrestler name. Deshaun says, Houston Texans over Tampa Bay, 20-7. Joker has the Texans, 41-14. Bodo has the Texans, 24-21. Ultra says the NFC South is weird. I could see the Bucs and Atlanta trending up and Panthers staying at the bottom for a while. I think it depends on the Panthers quarterback situation, and they definitely will have a higher pick than they probably should have had, though, so that's interesting. And this will be a big offseason for the future of the Carolina Panthers for sure. Turtle says, who else is a Bottom Line View Hall of Famer? I don't know. I have never decided that. Yes, all of the Pro Bowl wide receivers are from the NFC South, although I will say somebody will have to replace Godwin most likely if he's out long term. And I think Mike Evans as well, probably. We'll have to see. I wouldn't recommend that they play in that game, but that's just me. Yes, Will Grier is in for the Panthers this week. Turtle has upset alert. Kevin Durkant says Bills 20-13, extending his streak of 3-11 versus the Patriots. Ultra has the Patriots 17-14, so pretty close score to me. Sammy has the Patriots 21-9. Bodo has Titans have a better quarterback. It wouldn't surprise that the Steelers lose versus the Jets. Okay. But I think the Steelers are in position to win, especially considering the Titans lost that game last week. Or to get the 6th seed, I should say. They're in position to win that. Imagine Madden, says Patriots win. Deshaun says Bills win. Joker Mafia has the Bills scoring 28 points in Foxborough over the 17 of the Patriots. Graham says take it in a surprise of the week. Bills 24-21. Bodo says the Bills have a worse quarterback than the Pats, and that's saying a lot. Oh, shot at TB12. Pats 17-14. Take the under. Deshaun says, is the Chargers overrated, Mitch? Are they overrated? I don't know if they're rated at all. The Chargers, are they supposed to be good? I don't know. That's an interesting question, I guess. Deshaun says Patriots lose by 9. Awesome Zone says, hi, Mitch. I came to the stream, but it's a bit early for me. Make the time later next time because I have school. So it's tight. Yeah, usually it is later, but I have a dinner tonight, so I can't. I had to make it earlier. Sorry. Kill'em Boy says, Gilmore and White are going to shine. Graham says, is Cam Newton a better fit for Chicago or LA Chargers? It depends on who the coach is. I would say personally the Chargers if the coach remains Anthony Lynn. That's my opinion. But He says, personally, I think LA would give him instantly the best receiving core immediately. Also, Cam is flashy. He'd love Hollywood. There you go. Perfect. Ultra says, the Bills don't match up very well against the Patriots. Vash says, I've been a huge Patriots fan for a long time, 18 plus years. I rarely root against them. I watched Tom Brady step up and win a Super Bowl aboard CVN 74 when I was 19, and I was pretty blown away. They also beat a hot Raiders team in the snow. That was 2001. He's going all the way back. Deshaun says, what team you think Cam is going to? I think I'm going to have to make a separate video about that when we get to the off season. Jimmy says, I have the Titans beating the Saints by 10 and winning the division this year, and I have Seahawks winning by 20. Joker says, Mitch, if we win, you owe us an apology. No, I don't. But anyways. Any other final predictions here? Flames has a Pats by 17. What? The suit. Why does the suit keep coming up? I'm trying to tell you guys, I have to wear a suit for my sport media program. All right. Let's get back to the picks. So, going on to Sunday, the Jacksonville Jags will take on the Atlanta Falcons. This is a game, I'm going to be honest, a lot of these games I don't really care for. Atlanta is -7 in this game. They are at home. Jacksonville came up with the upset victory over Oakland last week, which was majorly disappointing for Oakland. Minshew brought them back in that game. Atlanta has really turned it around. I think you got to give their players credit. I think you got to give Quinn credit, and really they've been a lot better on defense overall. I'm going to pick Atlanta to win this game. I don't really have much reasoning. I just think they're a better team. For a lot of these games that I don't care for, I'm not going to give you a big analytical breakdown, but I think Atlanta, they've been playing well in terms of the pass rush up front, getting after the quarterback. I really like the play of their linebackers and their offense. Matt Ryan's playing well enough. The offensive line is playing a little bit better, so I don't feel they'll get overwhelmed, especially at home, by the pass rush of the Jags. And really, that's all the Jags have on defense right now. They're giving up a lot of yards through the air. They're giving up a lot of yards on the ground. I think Freeman could have a good game in this one. I think we could see a couple big plays through the air from Matt Ryan, because the Jags have a very simplistic scheme on defense, and I do think Matt Ryan having the recognition of that, because Jacksonville plays a similar scheme to his own defense, that he could have a pretty good game here. So I'm going to say that Atlanta does win, and I'll say they cover. I don't know, basing on how both teams have been playing. I know Jacksonville beat Oakland, but I'm not willing to say that's going to happen 2 weeks in a row. So I'm going to go with Atlanta to win. Let's say 31 to Jacksonville's 21. Let's go with that. 31-21 Atlanta. All right, next game. We have the Baltimore Ravens at the Cleveland Browns. Baltimore is -10 points. Baltimore is on the road. Cleveland. This is one of the teams that beat Baltimore earlier this season. So this will be a revenge game. #revenge game for the Baltimore Ravens and Lamar Jackson. The difference for me here is Cleveland is absolutely a mess. They have no desire to win or play football right now, and they're really hanging on by a string. I think the Baltimore Ravens will run them over. We saw Arizona expose Cleveland's defense last week. I think they can do a lot of the same, Baltimore, with some of the outside zone runs and hitting the ball down the field. I just don't see the desire or the passion or the effort to play for their coach from Cleveland. Maybe if Cleveland was a little bit more motivated, they would have a chance for an upset here, specifically at home. I just don't see it. I think the secondary of the Ravens matches up well with the Browns. Now, maybe if the Browns are able to run the ball, because if anybody is still trying, it's Nick Chubb. So because if the Browns are still able to run the ball early in this game and they maybe get a lead in this game, that will challenge the Ravens. But I'm going to say that the Ravens win. The 10 points is interesting, but because of the way that I feel about the Browns, I am going to take the Ravens to cover. It is a lot of points versus a team that beat them the first time around. But I just don't know. I just, with the whole like Jarvis Landry asking to be on another team and Odell wanting to be on another team and Freddie Kitchens being fired likely, I don't see the effort. So I'm going to go with Baltimore to win and Baltimore to win relatively big. I think it's probably by 17 to 20 points. I'm going to say 40 for Baltimore to 21 for Cleveland. I think it's going to be more Cleveland being bad than Baltimore being great, but Baltimore is great nonetheless, and I think this is the last game where they leave a statement going into the playoffs before sitting their players next week. All right, Carolina at Indianapolis. Indy is minus 6.5. They just had an absolutely awful performance versus New Orleans. And that was the most predictable game of the week. I'm going to be honest with you. That was as easy as picking anything out there in the NFL this year. It was just Drew Brees picking apart their zone defense underneath and the defense of the Saints eating up the lack of targets on the Colts and getting after Brissett and wrapping up the run game. I mean, that was easy as ever. And this week, new quarterback for the Panthers. Maybe they'll be a little bit more engaged and try and do it for Will Grier. So that's good. I do think it's the correct time to make the change because Kyle Allen has cost Carolina way too many games at this point. Not that it really matters, but I do feel like it matters for the morale of the team. And I do like the way Carolina played a lot on offense because I still feel like there's effort being put into their game plans offensively. I am going to take the Panthers to win this game. I don't know why. I know the game's in Indianapolis. I know that Indy and Carolina are fairly about the same in terms of their talent. I do think that Indy can run the ball well, but I do see this game being a shootout. I like the way that Norv Turner has been utilizing Samuel and Moore and McCaffrey, and if you watch that game versus Seattle or any game over the course of this season, I think Carolina moving forward has a lot of dynamic offensive players that are very promising. And I just think if Will Grier keeps the ball away from the other team and executes the offense, they have a chance to win this game. Because really, they could have beat Seattle if Kyle Allen didn't just give the ball to the other team. So that being said, I think the problem in Carolina has been the quarterback play. Because there's been a quarterback change, I think it ignites the team. Indy has no real reason to play in this game. And I don't think they really will be playing with 100% effort. And I just don't see the full amount of weapons on that team. I think T.Y. will be in the lineup like he was last week. And like I said, I think they'll be able to run. So I think it will be something like 27-24 Carolina, maybe with a last-second field goal. But I like the upset in this game. I'm going to go Carolina to win, and Carolina will take the 6.5. I do like the Carolina 6.5. I'm not so confident on the win, but I do think that the 6.5 is fairly good, considering Indianapolis, I feel like, is a little overrated at this point. Cincinnati at Miami. This game is basically the Bumble of all NFL games this week. I have the Bengals winning this game. Miami is favored. It is in Miami. But I was actually kind of impressed with what I saw from Cincinnati versus New England last week because I haven't seen a lot of Cincinnati games this year. I'm going to be quite honest with you, but I do need to go back and probably watch a couple before next year. I didn't recognize before the game for the New England versus Cincinnati game that Cincinnati actually has gotten back a lot of their players from health. You know, they've lost a lot of players early in this season, and they got them back later in the season, specifically on the defensive line. I think that will make an impact on this game, getting after the quarterback, whether that's Dunlap or Atkins. Hubbard is having a pretty good year. Lawson is in there. They do have a pretty good pass rush at times, and I do think that will affect Fitzpatrick. I also think like a guy like William Jackson, despite being on a bad team, is a good corner. And really the way to move the ball on Cincinnati is to run the ball. I don't think Miami really runs the ball efficiently or effectively. That being said, I don't think they'll be able to expose Cincinnati's defense because that is the way you move the ball on them, is running the ball. They're actually pretty much in the middle of the pack versus the pass, which would surprise a lot of people. On the other side of the ball, Andy Dalton is still about the same as Fitzpatrick. They're about at the same level. And, Joe Mixon is a beast. I hope he gets some little bit of an offensive line next year because I'll be picking him in fantasy drafts. Tyler Eifert is there, and despite A.J. Green not playing, they still have Tyler Boyd, Giovanni Bernard. They still have some players to move the football. Now, the Dolphins also have Devontae Parker and some of their playmakers as well. I think this game will actually be exciting for those that are watching it because it will be close. And I think, the organizations will probably be rooting to lose this game. But I do feel like Cincinnati, this is a game that they will go out there and try to win. I don't think it will have a huge impact on their record in terms of getting the first pick or not. So I'm going to say Cincinnati does win. This is a game that's unpredictable, but I do think Cincinnati is overall the more talented team. So I'm going to go with the Bengals. All right, next is Pittsburgh at New York. As Bodo says, he thinks that he wouldn't be surprised if the Jets beat the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if the Pittsburgh Steelers lost this game 2 years ago, or a year ago, or 3 years ago. And you know why? Because the Pittsburgh Steelers of the past, with the Bees and their crappy defense, they were always sleeping on bad teams, and they would lose to bad teams. Not this Steelers team. This Steelers team is closer together in terms of teammates. They play as a team. Mike Tomlin has been getting his message out effectively from week to week. They are more on their P's and Q's because they're not as talented as they used to be offensively, which means they need to be and pay attention to the details. In the past, the Steelers would lose this type of game. This year, I have the Steelers winning this type of game versus the Jets, and I have them covering as well. I think the Steelers' defense is too good at this point for me to say a team like the Jets will beat them. They're top 3 in football for me. As I said, I think it goes New England, Buffalo, Pittsburgh, and San Francisco as my top 4 defenses. I think Steelers are third on that list. Steelers are very good at taking the football away. Something Sam Darnold isn't good at is protecting the football. Versus Baltimore even, they had a chance to make that game close, but the Jets just look like a team that they have some talent, but they're just very poorly coached. They're very inefficient with the football, and they don't make the right decisions, and they're just bad in situations. So for me, Pittsburgh's the opposite. They're on their P's and Q's. They have a good coach. They're fighting for something. I think the biggest disadvantage for the Jets, or the biggest difficulty, will be protecting Darnold in general, which I think will lead to interceptions and turnovers. Steelers rank first in sacks and second in adjusted sack rate, while the Jets' offensive line is one of the worst in the league. They rank 30th in adjusted sack rate offensively, which means they give up a lot of sacks, if you didn't know. Duck Hodges should be able to have time in this game. Steelers' offensive line is pretty good, 7th versus the 25th defensive line at creating pressure. The Jets have a lot of injuries on defense. Their run defense wasn't good last week because they had a lot of injuries up front. Deontay Johnson, I really like from the Steelers at wide receiver. I think he has a big game in this one versus the Jets. James Conner is back and healthy. They have pretty much all their weapons there. Juju might be back, so that's good. I think the Steelers win this game. And one other big thing, this is a Le'Veon Bell revenge game. I think this is revenge for the Steelers more so than for Le'Veon Bell himself. I'm going with the Steelers. I will say they win 20-13 over the Jets and cover the spread. All right. Next, we have New Orleans at Tennessee. After this game, I'll go back to the comments. New Orleans is -3 in this game. Tennessee just lost a huge game versus the Texans, so they're below the Texans in the AFC South. If the Texans beat Tampa Bay, on Saturday, and Tennessee loses to the Saints, I think that's going to be absolutely huge. It's going to be very interesting. This game's going to be difficult for the Saints, though, because the Saints, I saw a stat from Warren Sharp. I actually want to look it up right now because I don't want to misquote it. But I saw a stat that Drew Brees has played an insane amount of, here it is, insane amount of dome games over the last 2 years. So in the last calendar year, the Saints have played 18 games. Drew Brees has just played outdoors in 1 game in the last calendar year. He plays in Tennessee this week. 10 of his last 12 complete games in that span have been at home or 1 in Atlanta. So Warren Sharp, if you don't already follow him on Twitter, that's a must follow for NFL. He's a great gambler and NFL mind. This is interesting. I think the Titans could win this game because I usually don't like Drew Brees outside, but I don't think this is really going to be an elements type of game. I don't think there's going to be snow or rain. I don't think it's going to be particularly cold. I also look at it and I kind of feel like the Saints match up well with the Titans on paper. You know, I feel like the Saints, their strength of their defense is to stop the run. What the Titans want to do is run the ball with Derrick Henry. They're a power team. And I feel like the Saints are a power defensive line. They have a lot of big bodies in there. They can stop the run effectively. I feel like Marshawn Lattimore is a physical corner to go up against A.J. Brown. So just from the matchups, I'm going to go with the Saints because I feel like that's a matchup that the Saints should win just based on the personnel on the field. But I do think it's going to be a great chess match between Dean Pease, Mike Vrabel, and Sean Payton from a defense versus offense perspective. And I do think that the Titans will do their best to take away like Michael Thomas and Elvin Kamara. I just don't know if it would be enough. I just think the Saints are a better team from a talent perspective. Not necessarily like a chemistry perspective, but from like a talent perspective, I feel like they're just better. And that's why I'm giving the win here to the Saints. I wouldn't be shocked because the Titans often do it where they're at home and they pull off some sort of upset versus a good team. Whenever they're an underdog, they find a way to come out on top. And backs against the wall, they may be able to do it. I just don't think I'm able to go there and say that they will. So I'm going to go with the Saints. Again, I wouldn't be shocked if they lost this game, but I'm going to go with the Saints. So keep that in mind. I think this will be a good game. I think this will go down to the wire, but I do have the Saints winning this game. And I think this is a big game for the Saints in terms of, okay, how are we outside? You know, like I said, Drew Brees hasn't played outside in a year. That's going to be big come playoff time because if you're not the number 1 seed, which you might not be, it's probably going to be Seattle or San Francisco. If you need to travel and you need to play outside, how is that? Is particularly if it's in Seattle, right? Because that would be like a rainy game. So interesting. Just keep that in mind for the Saints. See how they look. Watch them play. See how Drew Brees throws the ball. Just that sort of stuff. But I have the Saints winning because I just think they match up well with the Titans. Okay. So that game is out of the way. And before we get to the Giants and the Redskins and the rest of the card, we'll go to the comments. So leave your comments right now. Let me know. Guys, if you haven't already, make sure that you do Gronk spike the like button. Whoa, my computer just went crazy. All right. Everyone seems to have the 49ers, if I didn't read those comments earlier, but everybody seems to have the 49ers versus the Rams. A Human says Texans should trade for Saquon. I don't think the Giants are going to trade Saquon, buddy. Muhammad says, why does the NFC East suck? Ask the NFC East. What's up? I am Ruiz. I'll just say Ruiz. What's up, Ruiz? Pun says hi. What's up, Pun Lord? Man on Fire says, feel bad for you, Trivia. Good luck to the Colts next season. Poor Trivia. Ultra says, Thomas is the second best receiver in the NFL, yet he is the second best receiver in his division. Are you saying Mike Evans is the best receiver in the NFL? Or Julio? I'm just kidding. I know you think Julio's the best. Hot Take says, is this weekend the Hawks game you're going to? No, I'm going to the 49ers game. I thought I've said that. Yeah, that's definitely the reason, Kevin Durkant. I'm not hating on Breeze. I'm just saying he hasn't played outside. And he's usually not, if you look up his stats, this is factual. This is not biased in any way whatsoever. Look up his stats in domes. Then compare his stats in domes to outdoors, and you will see what I'm talking about. All I'm saying is the guy hasn't played outside in a year. So maybe you want to watch him play outside, because that will be a good indication if the Saints are going to play on the road in the playoffs. Nothing to do with me hating Drew Brees. I'm just saying if the Saints want to win on the road, they're going to have a good game outside. And this will be a good test for them because they're playing outside. And the game is not even going to be in the elements, most likely, because it's in Tennessee. So, that's all I'm saying. I'm not hating on Drew Brees, okay? I'm not hating on Drew Brees. And for me to say, yeah, he's a top 10 quarterback of all time, he's not top 5, apparently is hating on Drew Brees. I'm sorry, I don't think he's top 5. Maybe I have to make an entire video on it, but then it's just going to get a bunch of dislikes because nobody is educated enough to see that he is not top 5. I'm just going to say that. That's it. The guy, okay, top 5 all time, he has 0 MVPs. That's all I'm going to say. Continue on. All right. Trivia says, I'm not going to watch football until the playoffs, just deeply hurt by the Colts season. Good luck to all your fans' playoff teams. Sorry, Trivia. It was a promising season early on. I know the whole Andrew Luck scenario, that must have sucked. But, you know, it was an okay season. I think there was some letdowns throughout, like the Steelers game, for example, where they probably should have won that game. But Adam Vinatieri, you know. If the Titans win one, the Steelers also... Okay, what is this? SPDY underscore Dens, or Denz, says, if Titans win one and Steelers also are in the playoffs, but if the Steelers win one, the Titans win two, Titans are in. So the Steelers need to lose a game, is what you're saying. The difficulty there for Titans fans is that the Steelers, they probably will play a Baltimore team next week that is not going to be playing their players. So that's not going to be easy for the Steelers to lose. If they lose this week, this is the game that I think you're cheering for in terms of you want the Steelers to lose. But I could be wrong. Kevin Durkant says, why is everyone talking so much crap about Duck? Dude had a bad game against the best defense in the league, and now he can't beat the Jets. Shake my head. He sucks, but he's not that bad. He sucks, but he's not that bad. That's a weird way to put it. But, yeah, I agree. I mean, I think the thing is, Kevin Durkant, I understand you're an AFC East fan, so you understand how good the Bills' defense is. A lot of people don't know how good the Bills' defense is. I think it's just that, simply. I don't think people actually recognize how good the Bills' defense is. A lot of people underrate the Bills still. So, for that fact, I think that's why they're hating on Duck. Because people don't recognize that it's a team sport and that only the quarterback can just beat every other player on the team and throw absolute dots in the end zone for no reason. Like, it takes 11 players on an offense to beat 11 players on a defense, not just a quarterback. And I'm not saying Duck Hodges is great. I think he's better than Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, but that's just my opinion. And I think he gives the best chance for the Steelers to win. He just played a good defense. Everyone's saying Jets are going to win. Some people have Pittsburgh. Ultra has Pittsburgh. Robot Guy has Pittsburgh. Kevin Durkant has Pittsburgh. Okay, so we have mostly Pittsburgh, but Vash has the Jets and Human has the Jets. Bodo says he has the Jets too. He says Pittsburgh loses 14-13. Duck throws 4 interception. Duck throws. Who do I think's the worst starting quarterback in the league? That's a good question. Let me see. Let's go to the teams. I don't know that answer off the top of my head. It could be Duck, but let me see. So, not any of those teams. Not the Vikings, not the Bills, not the Raiders, not the Chiefs, not the Bears, not the Giants, not the Browns, not the Rams, not the Cardinals, not Atlanta. It might be Haskins. I don't know if Darnold is. Sorry. If it counts for David Blow or Blau or however you want to say his name, he's definitely the worst because he's the third string quarterback, but I don't know if that answer counts. So I'm going to go with a typical starter. I think it would probably be Haskins, which I know Haskins was technically the backup, but I think for the future he's the starter. So for now, it's Haskins in my opinion. But he did play pretty well last week. Santana says, hello, Mitch. Could the GOAT be needing glasses? Maybe. He is getting up there in age, so maybe he's a little nearsighted. Man on Fire says Julio's a top 15 receiver of all time, and I don't think I'd disagree with you. I think he's somewhere in that range. I don't think he's quite top 10 yet, but I think he's somewhere from 12 to 20. Come on over, John. You can come. Is it Micah or Mika? I'm guessing it's Micah, but he says, Mitch, how can you like the Patriots who cheat again and again? Long story. But I think I like being the villain. Kevin Durkant says Rodgers is overrated as hell. Vash says I love Drew Brees. That dude is phenomenal. I met Drew Brees. He's super cool. There you go. $9.99 from Bodo. He says, breaking news, BLV spy, Bodo reports. Mitch Milani says, Drew Brees sucks. Back to your picks. There's a lot of teams that have a great future. I will say I like the Broncos' future. I think that's one that people are sleeping on. All right, let's get back to the picks. Let's do that. Where was I? I think I was at Giants in Washington. All right, New York Giants. Let's get rid of this second one here. New York Giants at the Washington Redskins. I have no idea. I'm deciding on the spot for this game because I'm not going to watch a blink of this game. But I do have an interest in this game because I do have Saquon in the finals in my league, one of my leagues. So, Daniel Jones is back, I believe. Eli went out too good last game for him to play another one. I like the way the Giants played last week. I like the way Washington played last week. I think the Giants will be well equipped to stop the run of the Redskins. I think Saquon could have another good game as he appears to be healthier from last week. I'm going to go with the Giants. Let's go Giants upset. I'll take the 2.5, and I'll take my boy Saquon to win that game. And Daniel Jones over Haskins. Although, this might be a Haskins revenge game because he was picked after Daniel Jones. Interesting. Not going to be watching that game. Next, Detroit at Denver. I'm going to take Drew Lock and the Broncos minus 6.5. In this game, I also believe because it's at Mile High for the 15th time this year, because the Broncos have approximately 16 home games this season, they will win this game. I also think they'll cover because their defense is strong. They'll be able to lock it down versus the Lions. Tough game last week. They played the Chiefs, but I think Lock bounces back. Cortland Sutton has a good game, and the Broncos win. Simple. Moving on. Oakland at the LA Chargers. Also, just a quick note on the Detroit game. I was shocked when I heard that Patricia and Quinn will be back. I think that also affects the way the players play, because I don't know if a lot of these players like Matt Patricia. I'm just going to say that. Next, Oakland at Chargers. Chargers minus 6. Oakland lost Trent Brown to IR. I don't think he played last week, but regardless, he's gone to IR. I think he made the Pro Bowl, actually, which he wouldn't be able to attend the Pro Bowl. Derek Carr, will he be back next season? I want to hear what you guys think. Do you think Derek Carr will be back next season? I don't think so. I think they're going to move on from Derek Carr. I don't like the way Oakland has been playing. I think their defense is just completely exposed at this point. I think this is a big Phillip Rivers, Keenan Allen, Austin Eckler, Mike Williams. I think this is an air show for the Chargers. Chargers at home. Chargers win. I think Oakland is defeated. I think they're trying to work on that higher draft pick this season, get better for next year. And as I've said, I think Oakland can be pretty good next year because they have a lot of young talent, but the Chargers, as of right now, are the much more talented team with Joey Bosa playing for sacks, Melvin Ingram, Derwin James on defense. I like the way Thomas Davis, the vet, has played as well from what I've seen. And the offense, Mike Williams has been balling. Mike Williams had a big game versus the Vikings last week. Keenan Allen and that running back duo are nasty. I think the Chargers win. All right. Then we have Dallas at Philadelphia. This is a huge game. This is game of the week material right here. For a meaning. All right. This is one of my cold, hard locks of the week. This is a game that I would bet on, okay? Dallas will win this game. Dallas will win this game by 2.5. Lock it in. Dallas has the upper hand in this rivalry. They've won 3 games in a row, and they've won all of them by relatively convincing fashion. I think the only one they almost, or it was decently close, was last year when they played in Dallas. That's the only one I remember. But last year in Philadelphia, they dominated. This year they go to Philadelphia. I think they'll dominate. Last time they played in Dallas, this season, they dominated. Difference in this game to me is explosive ability on offense. Dallas has a ton of it. Dallas has one of, if not the most explosive offense in the NFL. They're first in yards. They're top 6 in both rushing and passing. And I think they'll be able to move the ball versus Philadelphia. Relatively easy. Washington actually ran the ball effectively on the Eagles. And that, as we know, that's the only thing Washington can do is run the ball. I think Zeke finds some success in this game. But more so, I think Dak has another massive game versus the Eagles, which he's played very well versus the Eagles through the course of his career. I think he has another big game. I think Amari Cooper has a massive game. Michael Gallup has a massive game. Randall Cobb, Tavon Austin. These guys have so much speed, so much big playmaking ability. It'll be difficult for the Eagles, specifically with their secondary that's not very talented, to cover. They'll have to play a lot of zone coverage, giving up a lot of easy throws to Dak because they can't play man versus Amari Cooper. They'll get torched. They can't play man versus Michael Gallup or they'll get torched. This is going to be a difficult game for Schwartz to game plan for. And then I just think defensively for Dallas, I like the way they adjusted versus the Rams. They won't really need to worry about much on the Eagles. The Eagles have nothing at receiver that you're worrying about. They have no big-time explosive speed. Zach Ertz is 10 yards or under, as I've been saying, and they've done a good job of covering Ertz in the past. I think they do the same in this game. I like Dallas to win this game big. I think they win I think this is where Dallas really has beaten the Eagles, is they've been able to take it to the Eagles up front. And we know that the Eagles that's how they win games. That's how they've won games in the past. That's how they've won their games this year, is when they dominate the line of scrimmage on the defensive and offensive lines, mostly the offensive line. And really, Dallas has dominated those matchups up front. I think Dallas wins because of the explosiveness. I think they have a chip on their shoulder. I think they're going in these playoffs. As I said in my Dallas Cowboys video, I think they are a really talented team that a lot of people are sleeping on despite their deficiencies at coaching. I think they find a way to overcome it. And I like Dak. I like the way their defense looks. I think the Cowboys easily win this game. I honestly don't understand why this is only 2.5. Despite it being in Philadelphia and Carson Wentz just having a huge game where he makes magic happen, I don't see the Eagles winning this game. Wentz played amazing last week, and I'm not willing to say he'll do it again this week. All right. Arizona at Seattle. Seattle is minus 9.5. All right. Seattle minus 9.5. I have Seattle winning. I have Arizona covering the spread. This is the biggest reason. Seattle has won 9 games this year. How many games have they won how many games have they won this year? 11? 11, I believe. They've won 9 games by 6 points or under. 9 of their 11 wins. That's insane. 9.5? Now you're expecting to come to 9.5 now. Like, is that going to happen? I think one of the games they won by over 6 was versus Arizona. But Kyler Murray, man. Does anyone watch Kyler Murray? This guy's a beast. The year of 2020 is going to be the year of Kyler Murray. For a lot of people are saying that. And I agree with them. I mean, 9.5 just seems like too many points. I know it's in Seattle, but the defense of the Seattle Seahawks is banged up. I mean, Wagner's banged up. He left with an injury last game. I think he'll be okay come playoff time, but he's banged up. Clowney's banged up. Diggs is banged up. These guys are all playing through injury. If the Seahawks defensive line, something I notice about them week in, week out, if their defensive line isn't able to dominate and get after the quarterback, their secondary struggles. They play almost 100% zone coverage. They can't play man because they get torched. They can't put teams away with consistency at all. I mean, they were up by 20 points versus Carolina, and with 3 minutes to spare, Carolina could have, came back in that game if they get a last-minute stop. So it was 30-24 at the end of the game, and Seattle had the ball with 3 minutes left and basically ran the clock out because they were able to run all over Carolina. But I also noticed, in that game, going back to watch it, Seattle had difficulty containing some of the speed and some of the outside runs that with McCaffrey, some of the screens that they were running. Seattle's defense, I just don't know about Seattle's defense. I think it's certain matchups really expose them. I don't know if Kyler can really expose them through the air with consistency, but I do believe that the Cardinals can run the ball decently well on the Seahawks, and Kenyon Drake's playing very well as of late. Obviously, we heard the story. Josh Gordon will no longer be there for Seattle. He's been suspended. That's tough, definitely, for Josh Gordon. I've said it already, but I wish him the best for his personal life. Hopefully he can turn around. But no more Josh Gordon. I don't think that's a huge loss for Seattle. He would make 1 or 2 big plays a game, but outside of that, he wouldn't do much else. I think getting Jerron Brown, Malik Turner, Hollister more targets, that's probably going to be the way to go. I think Seattle wins, definitely, but I do see Arizona making it interesting. And I said even before, like a few weeks ago, I was talking to Kev, and Kev even agrees, this is not going to be as easy a game as people think. I think, with the showing last week from Arizona versus Cleveland, I think Arizona makes it interesting. I don't think Seattle's going to run away with it by any means. So I'm going to say Seattle wins, but Arizona, division rival, team that's played them close in the past, I'm going to say 9.5 is too many points, and I'll take the 9.5, considering Seattle consistently finds a way to win 6 points or under. So Seattle will win, Arizona will cover. Next, Kansas City at Chicago. Sunday Night Football. Kansas City is -6. They are in Chicago. This is Trubisky versus Mahomes. Same draft class, right? Nagy versus Reed. This is teacher versus student. Kansas City is rolling. Chicago, they're playing spoiler basically at this point. They can't make it to the playoffs after a loss to Green Bay. Green Bay has their number. Aaron Rodgers has their number. That was a close game, though. If they pitch it one more time, they pitch it one more time, bro, Chicago could have came back in that game. I think this will be a difficult matchup for Kansas City. I just don't think that they'll lose, though. I think Kansas City will win this game. I don't know, but 6 is interesting. I'm going to say Kansas City covers, but I'm not 100% convinced there. I don't exactly think the weather is going to be too much of a factor. From what I saw, it will be windy maybe and a little bit of clouds, but no, not rain or snow. Regardless, Mahomes and the Chiefs have shown that they're great in those environments, those weather conditions. It hasn't really mattered for them. And because Mahomes, the thing that you guys need to know is really when a quarterback, you need a big arm when you're playing outside. That's really where arm strength is a huge determining factor. That's why the Bills picked Josh Allen. That's why Tom Brady plays in New England and he's had success and it hasn't really been affected. But then when you look at some quarterbacks like Peyton Manning, for example, or Drew Brees, as I was talking about, or we've seen a lot of quarterbacks. Those type of quarterbacks that are more accuracy over arm strength aren't as good outside because they can't tear the ball through the environment. They can't throw the ball through the wind, and it doesn't affect their ball as much. But when you're trying to pinpoint accuracy and you're trying to throw it through the environment and through the elements, it has an effect on the ball. So that's kind of the difference. Mahomes throws the ball in such a way with such velocity that it doesn't affect the ball when he's throwing it through snow or through rain or through wind. So even in Chicago, I don't think it has much of an effect on the offense. I also think Chicago's defense, while they're good, I don't think they're really great. I think they're a little overrated, to be honest with you. I don't think Khalil Mack should have made the Pro Bowl this year. I don't think their secondary is quite as good as some people think it is. I think Tyreek Hill will probably have a big game here. Travis Kelce, I think probably the Bears could cover him decent because they have the players to do so. But I think Tyreek Hill and that speed of the Chiefs offense will be very difficult for Chicago to handle and to scheme for. I want to see, even though this isn't the weakness of Chicago's defense, I want to see Kansas City to run the ball a little bit more. I'd like to see Shady McCoy a little bit more involved because I think he's been their most effective running back. And I do think they'll need to be able to run the ball in certain points in the playoffs if they want to have success. So I want to see them run the ball more. Defensively, I think the Chiefs' secondary has really played well. They played well versus Drew Lock last week. They played well versus Brady the week before that. They've had really good weeks. Really, the only one I remember where it was really bad was versus the Titans. But other than that, They played well. Tyrann Mathieu played awesome. Their corners have played very well. Now, they picked up T. Sizzle on, I guess he would be a D end at this point. And Alex Okafor was placed on IR. So that's a big loss for them. They did try and fill the void with Suggs. I don't know how good Suggs is going to be in that role. I think he can still play as a pass rusher. I'm not sure if he can still play on a consistent basis, but as a rotationary type player, I think he'll be okay for you. I think Kansas City wins this game. I think they cover. I just can't trust Trubisky if this game gets into any sort of a shootout to go toe-to-toe with Mahomes. And I don't think that the Bears have the running game to expose the Chiefs, and I don't think they want to run the ball much. They don't like to run the ball. So I'm going to go with the Chiefs because the Bears play right into their strengths. So Chiefs win, Chiefs cover on Sunday Night Football, and Chiefs look impressive going into Week 17 and are hoping that the Patriots lose on Saturday. All right. Monday Night Football, Green Bay Packers at Minnesota. This is a huge game in the NFC North. Minnesota needs to win, and they need to have Green Bay lose next week at Detroit, if I'm not mistaken, to win the division. Minnesota also needs to play Chicago next week and win that game. So I don't think Minnesota will be winning the division regardless. Because, one, I don't see Green Bay losing to Detroit. And two, I have seen Chicago beat Minnesota already, and I'm not saying that they will again, but it won't be easy to beat them. Dalvin Cook, I don't think is going to play, which that's a massive loss in this game. Huge blow. This is the worst run defense in terms of success rate in the NFL when it comes to Green Bay. They give up the highest success rate versus the run in the entire league. So with Dalvin Cook, they could really expose that. Without him, and without potentially Madison as well, that could be a huge loss. I do think Aaron Rodgers will have a decent game. Of course, Minnesota is not actually a weather type of place anymore. It used to be, but it's a dome. And Minnesota has a really, really good home field advantage, and I think that's why they're favored by 4.5, and it's kind of a bigger spread than I anticipated. They have a really, really good home field advantage, but Rodgers, I think, will have a good day. I think if they can keep him clean, for the most part, that secondary for Minnesota, I think, is a bit overrated, especially Xavier Rhodes, and I think Devontae Adams should find a lot of success. And if they're able to have any sort of success running the ball, that's going to open up Aaron Rodgers down the field. Now, on the opposite side, I think Kirk Cousins could have a lot of success as well because Thielen is back and Diggs is back. I don't think they'll have the same success running the ball without Dalvin Cook, but I think Kirk Cousins has the capabilities and the ability to carry this team to a win at home. I think Minnesota wins this game. I've been saying for weeks, I think Minnesota's the better team. And even without Dalvin Cook, I am going to take Minnesota to win. Now, I'm going to take Green Bay plus 4.5 because I think this game's extremely close. It always is. And I'm willing to take the points here because I think Green Bay has a chance to win this game outright. And I do feel like Green Bay and Minnesota match up with each other very well. So I'm going to take Green Bay plus the 4.5. That half point is kind of a big factor in this because I could see Minnesota winning like 24-20, 27-23, something like that where the half point comes into play. But I think Minnesota being at home, most people would have predicted they would split the season series, one at home, one away. And I think that's the way it's going to finish. Ultimately, though, I don't think it's going to have a big effect on the playoffs because I don't think Green Bay is going to lose their spot as a division winner because I don't think they're going to lose to Detroit next week. But this would put pressure on Green Bay to at least play their players to try and win versus Detroit. So that's the thing that it does do if Minnesota wins. And Minnesota needs to keep winning just to claim their wild card spot. So they'll definitely be trying next week. But Minnesota, they'll win this game. I just think they're the more talented team. They adjust better in terms of their coaching through the second, third, and fourth quarters. But if Green Bay is able to get that quick jump on Minnesota, they might be able to win. So it's going to be a very, very, very good game. I think both quarterbacks will play very well. Both defensive lines and pass rushes versus offensive lines are relatively even, so there's nobody going to expose or dominate in that facet. I think Thielen and Diggs, just better weapons than what Rodgers has on the other side with Adams and who's the next guy, right? So I think Diggs, Thielen might be the difference with Kirk Cousins throwing the ball over a Rodgers and Adams and the next guy. So those are my picks for week number 16. Some big games in week 16 from Saturday with Buffalo and New England to Sunday night with the big game, Chicago and Kansas City. We have the Eagles and the Cowboys. We have Green Bay, Minnesota. A number of big games this week. So I'm looking forward to it. Let's go to the comments one last time, and then I will peace out. Okay. Oh, the chat just updated. Okay, I gotta scroll all the way back. No, man on fire, you cannot. I like being the villain. I should put that on a t-shirt. Kevin Durkant has the Deadskins 24-20. Sammy says Giants 16-13. Awesome Zone says Redskins by 3. Singh says Redskins 26-25. Vash says, I mean, our DBs aren't terrible, but Lions are pretty freaking bad. Our offense is kind of good, and our receivers are sick. Our receiving corps is the bomb. Maybe next season. Robot Guy says, Skins because flip a coin. Ultra says, come on, Mitch, the people need to know. A Human says Seahawks trade for Saquon. It's not going to happen. Gold Eagle says I'd just take the Skins. The payout would be high. Turtle says, well, it wouldn't be because the Skins are favored. Ultra has the Skins 17-14. Turtle has the Skins 24-20. Kevin Durkant says, LOL, Mitch picked up Redskins defense in fantasy. I dropped that defense. They suck. I picked them up because they played the Eagles. I know that sounds savage, but I don't remember why I picked them up. I think it was because they played them, or it was because of the game before, but I'm probably going to have to pick up a new defense for the finals, but I'll have to see. I'll have to check it out. A Human has the Broncos 21-16. Singh has Broncos 24-10. Sammy has 34-9 Broncos. Robot Guy says Broncos because the Lions suck bad. Ultra says Broncos 24-13. Bodo says Lions quit this year. Broncos 24-10. All right, so everybody seems to have the Broncos. The next game, Chargers. Everybody seems to have the Chargers. Man on Fire says Newton will be comeback player of the year next year. Kevin Durkant says Eagles 26-20, baby. Fly, Eagles, fly. Dilly Vanilli going to take a huge L. Singh says upset alert, Eagles 30-6. Ultra has the Cowboys 31-27. Sammy has the Cowboys 24-16. Human has the Dallas 24-23. Gold Eagle says I'm taking Dallas straight money line. Robot Guy says Cowboys 27-24. Turtle has Dallas 28-20. Vash says Eagles for sure. Cowboys pooped the bed every time this year. I had them at the beginning of the year, but no way. Big games this year. Cowboys stink. Hey, they just won a big game last week. Man on Fire has the Cowboys because Dez owns them. I don't think Dez still plays on the team. Are you talking about, who are you talking about? Cowboys have the power of drip, says Turtle. Sebastian has the Eagles 20-17. Ultra says Dak is awesome. Ultra says trap game. Singh says Hawks 21-14. Russ for MVP, says A Human. He says, go Hawks. Man on Fire says, Kevin, do you know what an opinion is? Turtle says, Seahawks 31-23. Gold Eagle says, taking the Cardinals +9. Ultra says, Arizona will make it competitive but lose. Robot Guy says, Hawks by 3. What else? Vash says, that'd be sweet if Arizona wins, but Seattle is great at home, and they are generally a great team. Andy Reid doesn't play offensive line because he can just coach. Robot Guy says, Kansas City by 7. Ultra has the Chiefs 24-17. Sebastian has the Bears 24-20, or 25-20. A Human says Tyreek Hill is a Hall of Famer. Turtle's response is too much for me to comment on. Kevin Urquhart says Chiefs offense is overrated. Okay. Singh says, which NFL quarterbacks right now play good in cold weather other than Brady? Mahomes. Mahomes. Let me see. I got to pull up the teams, guys. Pull up the teams. Rodgers, because he has a strong arm. Generally, Wilson plays pretty well, I would say. Not amazing, but well. Who else sticks out in my mind? I think that's it. That stick out in my mind. Yeah, that's about it. Maybe Ben, but he's not even... He's hurt. So I think those are the guys for me. If I had to pick a top 4 or 5. Robot Guy says Vikings by 3. Graham says we all know who's taking this one. Ultra says Minnesota 34-31. Kevin Urquhart has the Vikings 31-24. Turtle has 32-22 Vikings. Singh has Packers 35-0. Andrews Football says, just join. Where are you getting the spread numbers from? I just get it off The Score, which is a website. I believe it's a Canadian company, but I just get it off The Score. It depends where you get the spreads. Different places have different numbers, so it may change for you or be different for you. But I just take a general one, and then I bet on the same one every week. Vash says, I love the Vikings. Hashtag Skol. Packers are winners. I can actually check my other website right now and tell you what the number is where I actually bet. Let me tell you what the number is. So, the number is 5.5 now for the Vikings. There you go. I would take that as well. That's a big number. All right. I think that's everything, guys. All right. Thank you for joining me for this week of picks. If you enjoyed, again, make sure that you do Gronk Spike the like button and subscribe to the Bottom Line View for more football, fantasy football, NFL picks, predictions. Start them and sit them out tomorrow. We'll see you then. Enjoy week number 16 with Thanksgiving 2.0 on Saturday. Peace out.